and I'm here to introduce you to the Canon XF705. Excellent, high-quality camera. This, what you're seeing on the table before you, is all the components that you'll be using for your productions here at Newhouse. This will be your primary camera, the Canon XF705. I'm going to name all the components. This is a battery that's required to be used with this camera. And note, the green light indicates whether the battery is charged or not. You can check it before you leave. Audio, XLR, hardwired cable which connects to the camera. You can tie that to a hardwired lavalier mic that you can attach to the person, as well as a handheld mic that also ties to the XLR and plugs into the camera. These are direct connections to the camera, your hardwired microphone, lavalier, and handheld. Here's a light. In case your situation lighting needs lighting, this battery attaches to the light and you can use lighting. We're going to go over all these components, but I just want to introduce you to them. And as far as the wireless side, you have a wireless lavalier. You plug this into the receiver into the camera, the transmitter you put onto your person that you're actually interviewing, and you go through the process. This leaves them unencumbered and you can walk around. If you're doing an interview and you're walking around, the wireless is always your best option. You can also use this as a wireless handheld. If you were to connect this transmitter and plug your receiver into your camera and turn off your other lavalier, and this is what you have, a complete wireless system handheld. This also comes with a tripod, satchler. This tripod comes in a bag like this. Easy to carry, very easy to manage, and very easy. Unzip, and you can pull the tripod out. This is your tripod. The first thing you want to do is you want to literally loosen the first stage up by pulling the first stage legs out. If you notice, I'm pulling them out and I'm tightening them back. I'm loosening them, half a turn loose, the other turn back, tightens it up. Once you tighten it up, you can bring it up like this. Notice the next thing I do is the spreaders. You loosen these, give yourself a solid base, and tighten them back up. So you got stage one tripod, you have the first stage out, tripod is solid, everything is set, you're ready for stage two. You want a tripod to be about right below your chin. So in this case, you loosen these three levers here, and grab it by the head of the tripod. You notice the entire moves up. You slide it back down, get it to about the height you want. You stop, you hold it, tighten this, tighten up your second one, and tighten up your third. Tripod is set and ready to go. Tripod is set in place. You want to make sure your tilt is correct and your pan is correct. The ability to pan is this right here. That's panning, pan left, pan right. In order to lock that pan, you pull this forward. This lever forward locks it. It won't pan anymore unless you force it. This locks your shot down. This secures your shot that you want. Once you've got your shot locked so you won't accidentally bump the handle and lose the shot that you want. Your frame back shot, you want to make sure it's framed right. You lock that, you push this in, it allows the friction. It still won't move unless you bump it, okay? But it has friction, that's a friction lock. The lock locks it down so it doesn't move at all. Same way with tilt. You see we can tilt this. There's a lock for tilt right here. If I pull this up, you see that? You can't tilt. Camera's locked in the tilt position, which is fine. That's what you want to be able to do. Once you got the shot you want not to be able to tilt the camera or the camera to move anymore, you lock down the tilt and you lock down the pan. I'm going to unlock the tilt, and there's tension on the tilt. If you look here, these three, you can turn these left to 0, 1, 2, or 3. We typically keep it at 2, and that gives you really ability to pan and tilt and flow very easily. So both are set on 2 right now, the tension for the pan and the tension for the tilt. The third thing to make sure is your camera is level. There's a leveling bubble directly in front of me. And I can look at that leveling bubble. I can loosen this handle. If you notice, the whole entire head moves. Well, the head moves and that bubble gets in the center, and I tighten this handle back up, and it stays there. Now you've got so your shot's not crooked, you got a straight shot. So you got a level camera, you understand how to tilt, you understand how to pan, and you understand how to lock those tilt and pans in position. That's the setup for your tripod. She has her camera within her sight in a safe distance, and a tripod. Never leave your equipment unattended. This is your case. This case, when everything is in here, is safe and is protected. If I drop this case or if it falls over, boom, no issue. Camera's still secure. That's why it's always important to make sure the case is locked. Never grab the camera by this or this eyepiece. The handle. Always grab it by the handle. On the bottom of your camera, if you take it out of the camera, make sure you have a plate on it. So when I put this on, just so you can see it, I'll do it at an angle. I'm going to slide it on. You hear a little click. Hear that clicked in? That means it's locked in. Tighten this up. Secures the camera in place. Always check and make sure it's secure so that it won't come off. Remember, we're going to lock down the tilt and we're going to lock down the pan. Now the camera won't move. The camera is safe and secure. So now you've got the camera on the tripod. The battery. The battery does not come with the camera. You'll have to request this battery. When you request the battery, make sure it's fully charged. This indicator, if there's 4 lights on there, it means it's fully charged. If it only has 2 or 3, you might want to get another battery that's charged, so just to be safe. These batteries will typically last you about 2 hours in the field. You'll probably need at least 2 of these if you're going to be out in the field for more than several hours. So switch here, that turns the power on. A green switch turns the power on. You push the viewfinder, opens, you can see, you can actually see images on the viewfinder. Flips over, there's a mirror function that if everything is upside down, you hit the mirror function and you can actually stand in front of the camera and take a look at your image. If you look at the side here, you can go right down the side. It talks about things like zebra. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about iris controls. Peaking, we'll talk about that when we talk about focus. You want your focus, you want that on manual. You want your iris on manual, and you want your infrared on off. You want your all automatic white balance off, and you want your automatic gain control off. All those off. This is where you place your card, your SD card. There's 2 slots here. There's already an SD card in this camera. Card simply goes in, slides in like this. Close the door. Light up green. That indicates that the camera is working. Now we want to talk about iris. If you look at this lens, there's 3 rings. The inner one, the most inner ring is the iris. When that's closed, it opens or closes to allow light in and out of the camera. The second ring is zoom. That zooms your shot in and out. And the third ring is focus. It focuses your shot. So those are the 3 rings. The neutral density is a clear filter that has a couple f-stops to bring the light down so you can get a nicer image on your camera. Some people use the terminology sunglasses. This camera has a function though to give you what neutral density filter should be set at. Now we want to talk about focus. There's a peaking function in focus that when you hit that button, everything turns. You see this red on goes in your image. And what happens is if you focus and you where all the red is at, I'll be showing you, that indicates that you're in focus. Sometimes when you're outside in the bright light, the viewfinder is kind of difficult to see. You might want to use that as a tool to make sure you're focused correct. First, what I'm going to pull out is your handheld mic that you plug into that input. Here's a cable that you have, and here's your handheld mic. And there's a list on top of the case that describes everything that should be in the case. You want to make sure when you look through that list, you want to make sure all the things that are supposed to be in the case is actually in the case. This is your wireless combination. Your wireless works in combination with all 3 of these units. One of these is your transmitter, one is your receiver. This right here is your transmitter. Do a handheld wireless. You want to take this and plug this into your RE50 microphone. Okay. This cube, when you turn it on, power it on. You're going to take this as your transmitter. This is your receiver. This needs to be plugged in directly into the camera. There's a connection here that you can actually plug this in. On top, a little hot shoe. You slide this on. Take this, plug it into here. Okay, this device communicates with that device wirelessly. And now you have the ability to do the same thing we were just doing, do an interview here now, but lo and behold, I don't have any cables that's in the way or cumbersome. If you wanted to walk around a little bit and talk while you were trying to explain something, you have a little bit more freedom and mobility. And you'll be a lot easier to manage this microphone without a cable connected to it. But if you're going to use a wireless mic, make sure everything is set correctly, make sure you test it, make sure you listen to it, make sure there's no interference. And if you do that and you get a clean signal, you'll have an excellent audio. Again, wireless handheld. In order to switch that to a wireless lavalier mic, the only thing you do is you turn this off, disconnect it, you take your lavalier, open it up, there's a power button, you push that power button on. That is automatically set to the same frequency as this. It works with whichever one you have turned on. You don't want them both on at the same time because then they'll both will be working and it'll be confusing. And it will try to pick them both up, but that creates a problem for you. And there's a slight difference when you're adjusting a handheld wireless microphone as when you're adjusting a lavalier microphone. So you have to do your audio level adjustments slightly different. So, but this is how you do it. Of course, you'll go through the technique of how to put the wireless on a person. So let me touch on white balance one more time. So white balance is located here. You find a white card, like this. And what you want to do is you want to find where your subject's going to be standing. So if I'm going to be standing right here, I need to hold my paper here, where I'm standing at. White balance should always take place as to where you're standing. If the person's going to be standing here, you white balance here. Never take out your white balance paper, your white card, and do a white balance like this, because no one's going to be standing that close to your camera. Put the paper where the actual white balance would take place, okay? So I'm looking at your camera, you're looking at me, I'm holding this white paper up. You would push this white button that says white balance, and what would happen is the camera would automatically recognize this paper as white, and because it understands this paper is white, the camera can electronically identify all the other colors and give you excellent quality colors. If you do not white balance correctly, let's say your paper is off-white or gray, then your colors are going to be off. So you might have a blue tint or orange tint to your colors, okay? White balance has to take place whenever you change scenes, because all light sources are different, and they require, whenever you leave one white light source to go into another light source, it requires you to white balance. So if you're outdoors in sunlight, if you're in incandescent lighting or fluorescent lighting, it requires you to do a new white balance. So even if you're in the same building, you go from one office maybe to a lobby, you still will need to white balance again, because you may have light coming from the windows in different light sources. Those different light sources require for you to re-white balance. Here's your situation. This is your light and this is your battery. The battery is not the same as the battery for the camera. It's a different light. Make sure you request the battery for a light as well if you're going to be outside in a situation where it may be dark, or an office where you may not have proper lighting. We also have light kits you can sign out, but this light comes with the camera. Open the covers here. Two smaller ones first, and the two larger ones. Controls on the back. Push the button in, hold it. The light comes on. Light can be mounted just where the actual receiver was for the wireless. It slides in and locks in just like it did. And this even has an tilt adjust to light up or down. And you can adjust the barn doors as well. We talked about how to set, we talked about the iris ring. This ring here, the lens, where we have the iris that you open and close. We want that on manual so you can have complete control of your iris. We talked about the zoom on your ring here, and we also talked about how to focus. We realized with focus, we have something called peaking that works in association with focus. These two work together. When you have peaking on, you have a little red. When the red clears, when the red comes into full focus, that means that you're fully in focus. That's just a tool to help you. We also had zebra. That's when you're doing your iris. You push that button, you'll notice those zebra stripes. When those zebra stripes are typically on a subject, it means that the lighting is pretty decent. And it's just, again, a tool to gauge whether or not you think you've got good lighting on your subject matter. Typically, if you have lighting on a person in this room, the light, if the zebra's on it, would be a few light speck stripes maybe across their nose or their forehead, depending on the color of the person's skin. Okay? And we also talked about focus. We talked about audio and how to set up your audio. Handheld wireless, handheld wired, lavalier wireless, and a lavalier hardwired. Those are your 4 options for microphones. As you know, in order to monitor audio, you must have your audio plugged into a headphone and actually have your headphones on. For example, when you want to listen to different audio channels, select channel 8. By pushing this button in and out, you're going to allow the channel selections that you're monitoring in your headphones to change. Whenever you're shooting a video where you have the talent, always choose channel 1 or 2. 1, 2. Channel 1 will be your input audio. Very important. So now when you're listening on your headphone, you're only listening to the talent and you're not listening to anything else. If you want to select natural sound, push the button again 3 or 4 more times and it'll switch to 3, 4. 3 and 4 are the stereo mics on the camera, which automatically records all the time. But you can listen to the level. If you're not recording a talent or you have nothing in input 1, you can actually hear the sound on channels 3 and 4 by simply pushing this button number 8 up or down. In your headphone volume, you can't hear with your headsets on, push this button. It raises the volume. Number 10. Push 10 repeatedly and it raises the volume up. If you want to lower the volume, push 11. It lowers the volume on your headphones. It allows you to load your settings from your camera to the SD card located in slot B. So your card will be located in slot B. You can access that card by pressing button 12 and use the toggle switch and load until you get into load mode, and you can load your SD card settings onto your camera to be sure your settings on your camera are all correct. That process, when you initially set your camera up, it'll be once. Once that's your camera is set with the SD card, you can always load it on by following a few steps by selecting switch 12 and following a couple simple steps. Lucky 13 is how you initialize your card. Pressing the button in, it'll ask you want to initialize the card. Whatever card you have in SD slot A or B, you select that slot by using this toggle switch here. If you decide that you want to zoom and not use this ring, if you switch this to rocker, it allows you to actually control your zoom here on the rocker. Keep that in mind when you're using this camera. That peaking is an option. And peaking, what it does, though, it puts red on your image, and when that red becomes clear, then it means that your image is actually in focus. Sometimes that's a good tool to use, so just keep that in mind. If you're out shooting, try your peaking if you're having problems with focus. And there's also an autofocus button that you can always use to do a quick adjust for autofocus. Keep in mind, focus is critical when you're shooting production work. If your camera and you can't do anything, like adjust your iris or control any devices, you may find that the key lock mode, which is located right here, may be in the lock position. Just relieve that from unlock that, it'll give you control of your lens. Please be aware, whenever you're on campus, always wear a mask.